How many times have you told yourself, I'll slow down after this project is done? Or next month, I'll have more time for myself? Maybe you have reached the point where you are thinking, something's got to give. But when you look at your life, there's nothing that you feel like you can let go of. Welcome, my friend, to the Magic Mindfulness podcast. I am your host, Rachel Hupp. And if you are nodding your head right now, this powerful solo episode is for you. We are going to be talking about putting yourself back on your own to do list. And no, as much as I love them, this is not just another conversation about bubble baths and face masks. This is really about something much more fundamental, and that is reclaiming your energy, reclaiming your joy, and reclaiming your sense of self. Now, in this episode, I want to cover three key things with you. So, first, we're going to talk about why it is so hard to prioritize ourselves, even when we know that we should. Second, we're going to talk about the real cost of constantly pushing our needs to the bottom of our list. And then finally, I'm going to be sharing some practical steps with you so that you can start making yourself a priority today without adding more overwhelm to your busy life. All right. So we've got a lot to cover. And before we dive in, I just want to share a personal story. I want to talk to you a little bit about something that happened to me recently because I found myself falling back into this exact same trap, telling myself that, oh, once I get through this project or once I get this off my plate, then I'll get back into my workout routine. Then I'll make time for my daily walks again. Then I'll actually stop to eat lunch. Have you been there? I'm guessing you probably have. So the other morning, I went to meet my friend to jog, and we were just kind of chatting about we're just spinning too many plates, trying to juggle too many things. You know, that conversation, you've probably had it yourself with your friends. Something's got to give, but what can I possibly let go of? Um, and I had to admit that I had been giving so much of myself for so long that these signs of depletion, these signs of chronic stress, these signs of constant fatigue, they were just getting to the point where they were becoming impossible to ignore. And here's the thing, my friend. I have been down that road of chronic stress before, and I have got zero intention of getting sucked back in. So, because I'm aware of the signs, I noticed them more early this time, and I made myself a promise right then and there. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after this next project, not later. But right now, I am making myself a priority again. And it's fascinating. And I've been through this before. I should know this by now. But since setting healthier boundaries around my work hours, since prioritizing my workouts, my walks, I am actually accomplishing more. Why? Well, because I am giving from a place of excess rather than exhaustion, a place of um, I feel full instead of depleted, right? My energy is higher. I feel better. And I'm not operating from that place of I have to or I should. And so here's what I see happening with so many women that I work with. On the outside, everything looks perfect, right? We've got a great career. Um, you're taking care of everyone, you're getting things done. But on the inside, they're exhausted from its constant thinking. There's this perfectionism and these impossibly high standards. And so, if you are nodding your head right now, I see you. You are not alone. And more importantly, there is a way out of the cycle that doesn't require you to abandon your responsibilities or completely overhaul your life. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about what is really happening when we keep pushing our own needs down to the bottom of the list, because this is not just about being busy. We're all busy. This is about a deeper pattern that is keeping so many of us stuck in these cycles of depletion and overwhelm. And I mean, flat out neglect, if we're honest. So here's what this might look like. You wake up in the morning and you are already thinking about everything you need to do. You are responding to emails during breakfast, if you even eat breakfast at all. You are moving through your day, checking off the boxes, right? Meeting deadlines, taking care of everyone else's needs. So, between managing your career, maybe running a household, caring for family, maintaining relationships, and trying to squeeze in workouts between those meetings, you are doing all the right things. You're being productive, you're being responsible, you're being available. But there's this constant undercurrent of overwhelm, this nagging feeling that no matter how much you do, it's never quite enough. Can you relate, my friend? Does that sound familiar to you? Because I know I have been there myself. And let's be honest, you probably know intellectually, you probably know intuitively that you need to take better care of yourself. But every time you try, something gets in the way. Maybe it's guilt, that voice telling you that it's being selfish for wanting to take that yoga class instead of staying late at work again to get ahead on tomorrow's tasks. Maybe it's that perfectionism so many of us deal with. If you can't commit to the perfect morning routine, why bother at all? Or maybe it's that sneaky belief that your worth is somehow tied to how much you can get done in a day. The real cost, it's not just your energy levels, it's not just your stress. It's your joy, right? Your spontaneity, your ability to actually be present for your own life instead of just managing it. It's looking at old photos and realizing you can't remember the last time you felt that light, that free, that present. We have gotten so good at being capable, at handling everything that we have forgotten we are allowed to put down some of those plates we're spinning. We've forgotten that taking care of ourselves isn't a luxury, it is essential. So, how do we start? How do we start making ourselves a priority? How do we get ourselves back on our to do list without feeling guilty, without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling it like it's just one more thing that we've got to do, one more thing we've got to add to our list? Baby steps, my friends, start small. Let me share with you what I have learned, both personally and from working with dozens of women who have been down this path. So, first, we need to understand something crucial. This is not about adding more to your plate, it's about changing how you approach what's already on it. I heard something recently. My Facebook group is called Bringing Balance to Life. And I used to talk a lot about balance. And I have shifted to talking more about alignment, wildly aligned, my wildly aligned women group, creating our wildly aligned life. And the reason for that is because I have found that balance, that sense of balance, it is so fleeting. It's something we're always chasing. But when we are aligned with our core values, when we are approaching life from that place of alignment, when we know our true priorities, and when we know where it makes the most sense for us to invest our time, our energy, that is when we can start to create this wildly aligned life of our dreams. And so it's not about adding more to your plate, it's about changing how you approach what's already on it. So remember earlier, I mentioned that now I'm actually accomplishing more now that I am prioritizing myself better. Here's why that actually works. When we are depleted, when we are investing energy in the things that don't necessarily get us ahead, they're not necessarily the highest priority on our list, but we feel like we need to check the box. We feel like we need it to get it done. But when we're depleted, everything takes more effort, right? So that report that it should have taken an hour to write takes two because you can't focus. And that decision that we need to make takes days because we are overthinking it, right? We're operating in survival mode. We are running in fumes and we're wondering why everything feels so heavy, why everything feels so hard. But here's the shift that changes everything. Start viewing self care not as something you do after everything else is done, but as the foundation that makes everything else possible. So I don't know if you've been to any of my yoga classes yet. We always start from the ground up. We always start with the foundation because you need a firm foundation. You need a solid foundation to build your pose upon. It's the same way with our life. You need that solid foundation of self-care. You need that solid foundation of refilling your own cup so that you've got that firm foundation to give from the sense of excess. So, self care is not something you do after everything else is done, it's the foundation that makes everything else possible. So, let me give you a practical example of that, right? So, last week I had a super packed schedule, client sessions, work deadlines, classes to teach. I don't know if you know, I work full time and I teach yoga on the side. I work with one on one clients on the side. I just wrapped up an 8-week group coaching program, Wildly Aligned Women. And I also try to regularly add new yoga sessions to my YouTube channel. And I send out 2 newsletters a week. So to say I am juggling a lot, not to mention being a partner, running a household, and trying to be a good friend, a good sister, a good daughter, all of these things, just like you, we're all juggling a lot. So, anyway, last week my schedule was super packed like it normally is, but maybe even a little bit more so. And so, my old pattern when I get this crazy busy would have been to push through, to skip my meals, to work through lunch, to stay up late, to get ahead. But instead, I did something that felt almost rebellious at first. I blocked off my daily walk. I blocked that time off as non negotiable. I treated it with the same importance as a client meeting, something I don't skip out on. The result? Not only did I get all my essentials done, but the quality of my work was better and I got the work done faster because I was thinking clearly. I was more present with my loved ones because I wasn't running on empty. And most importantly, I wasn't resenting my commitments because I was choosing them from a place of energy rather than a place of obligation or depletion. So, how do you get started? Well, here are 3 practical steps that you can start to take to help you begin to make this shift. You can start with one small, non negotiable act of self care every single day. Maybe it is a 10-minute morning meditation. Maybe it's a 2-minute morning meditation. Maybe it's a lunch break away from your computer, away from your desk. Maybe it's an evening walk with your partner or your dogs or your friend. The key is to make it small enough that your inner perfectionist can't talk you out of it, but meaningful enough that it actually fills your cup. It makes you feel better. It brings you a sense of joy and satisfaction and fulfillment, right? So start with one small non negotiable act of self care every day. And then number 2, create boundaries around your energy, not just your time. So, what do I mean by that? Well, maybe you say no to that late night email check, or maybe, it's setting up office hours for when you are available to other people. Remember, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. And in today's world where we are always on, it can be really difficult to set those boundaries, right? And so I encourage you to look at your schedule, to look at your life and see where can you set those healthy boundaries to help to protect your energy and your time. And then step number 3 sounds simple, but it's pretty profound. And this is to practice the pause, the power of the pause. How often do you automatically say yes? Are you a yes person? I used to be. I've had to work on it. Um, so before automatically saying yes to something, before saying, "Oh, sure, I can take on that next project," um, or "Yeah, I can host that party," or "Yeah, I can plan that." Before you add one more thing on your to-do list, pause and ask yourself, "Is this essential? Is this aligned with my core values? Does this align with what matters the most to me? Am I saying yes from a place of obligation or authentic choice?" Now, I realize that sometimes in our work life, we don't really have this option, but where can you apply it in your life, right? So think about, oh, that doesn't work for me. Instead, shift that into how can this work for me, right? So it's all about mindset. And so, hey, I know what you may be thinking, but Rachel, you don't understand. I really can't say no to these things. I hear you. This is not about dropping all your responsibilities overnight. It is about making small, intentional choices that add up to big changes over time. So, baby steps, my friends, start small. Small, consistent action adds up to powerful transformation over time. So let's dive into. I want to talk about some of the biggest obstacles that tend to come up when we start making these changes. And guilt. Guilt is a big one. It's that nagging voice that says, but isn't it selfish to put myself first? Shouldn't I really just do that one thing instead? Um, but here's what happens. We get so exhausted, we run out of steam, we run out of energy for ourselves, and we end up crashing and burning at the end of the day. Here's the truth. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is responsible. Think about it this way. Again, it's a mindset shift. If you were taking a road trip, would you feel guilty about stopping for gas? Of course you wouldn't. Of course not. You know that if you don't refuel, you're not going to reach your destination. You're not going to be able to show up for the people who are waiting for you. That same principle, my friend, that same principle applies to your energy, to your well being, to your presence. You cannot keep running on empty and expect to show up as your best self, for the people, and for the projects that matter to you. And here's something else that I have noticed. When we start taking better care of ourselves, we actually become a better role model for the people around us, whether it's your children, your colleagues, our friends. We show them that it is okay to have healthy boundaries, that worth isn't measured by exhaustion, that they deserve to take care of themselves too. So the real transformation happens when you realize that prioritizing yourself, it's not about being selfish. It's about being sustainable. It's about creating a life that energizes you, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel joyful, instead of a life that depletes and drains you. So now that we have addressed the guilt factor, let's talk about how you can start making this shift today. Here is my invitation to you, my friends. Start today, not tomorrow, not when things slow down, not when everything is perfect, because let's be honest, that day probably isn't coming. Start with one small shift, one small thing. Maybe it's taking an actual lunch break. Maybe it's saying no to something that's been draining your energy. Maybe it's delegating something on your to do list. Pick one thing, just one, and make it non negotiable. And if you find yourself hesitating or that inner critic, that inner voice starts chiming in, remember this, my friend. You do not have to earn the right to take care of yourself. You do not have to earn the right to take care of yourself. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove that you deserve it. You don't have to wait until you are running on empty to refill your cup. So, one thing, what are you going to do? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So, we've covered a lot pretty quickly. So, let's do a quick recap of what we've talked about today. We talked about how trying to do it all while running on empty is not sustainable. We explored why self care is not selfish. It's actually the foundation that makes everything else possible, not only possible, but more joyful, more fulfilling. And we discussed 3 practical steps that you can take, starting with one small, non negotiable act of self care every day, creating boundaries around your energy, not just your time, and practicing the pause before automatically saying yes to more commitments. And again, I just want to remind you that this is not about adding more to your plate. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about changing how you approach what's already on your to do list. So, if this episode resonated with you, my friend, I would love to support you further on your journey. Come on over and join us in the Zen space. It's my online yoga membership where you will get access to both my on demand yoga and mindfulness libraries, plus 4 live stream yoga sessions every month. And yes, I know that committing to a 40 to 45-minute practice every week or so can feel like a lot when you are already busy. But remember what we talked about today. It's not just another thing on your to-do list. It's an investment in your energy, your clarity, and your well-being. So you'll find a link to join us in the show notes if that is something that sounds interesting to you, if that is something that sounds like it would help you to nourish yourself and fill your own cup. And remember, that voice telling you that something has to give, listen to it. But instead of waiting for the breaking point, choose now. to make yourself a priority. Trust me, your future self will thank you. And I bet you the people closest to you will thank you too, because you're going to be showing up with a new light in your eyes. You're going to be showing up with a renewed energy. You're going to be showing up with a renewed sense of joy and vitality. So, thank you, my friend, for tuning in to another episode of the Magic Mindfulness Podcast. Until next time, take good care. And yes, I mean, actually, take good care of yourself.